Ebola is an infectious disease that causes fever, internal bleeding, and organ failure. Ebola is spread through contact with infected bodily fluids and normally results in death. Researchers have found that the Ebola virus may have existed for 23 million years, much longer than many had thought.
So the Ebola virus, that's gotta suck, huh?
The recent Ebola obsession that occurred towards the end of 2014 was the first time that many had even heard of the disease. Little did Americans know, Ebola has been mentioned, talked about, and referenced to in American media for years.
Oh, Lord Jesus, no.
Bernie?
Huh?
What's wrong?
Baby, don't go in there, please. They got Ebola.
Contamination, I'm thinking like an Ebola leak or something.
Ebola?
Yeah, it's a disease on the Discovery Channel where all your intestines sort of just slip right out of your butt.
Thank you. I know what Ebola is.
Uh-huh.
Now tell me, what would a West African virus be doing in our lab?
Health workers fan out to remote villages in northern Uganda, searching for the latest victims of the deadly Ebola virus. More than 40 people have died. No one's sure how many others are infected. Anyone with flu-like symptoms is being quarantined.
Major news stations like NBC have been making reports on the Ebola virus long before this past year. This reporter's voice has a calm and formal tone throughout the entire news report, which ultimately helps keep our audience calm and does not give them any reason to worry.
Outside, the dead are unceremoniously buried by men in latex gloves and masks. Ebola is so efficient, it usually kills its victims faster than the disease can spread, burning out before the virus can reach too far. But experts still don't know why it suddenly reappears, often years later and hundreds of miles away. Ebola last appeared in 1995 in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Before that epidemic was contained, 245 people were dead, 70% of them healthcare workers trying to ease the pain of their patients. Ugandan officials believe this latest outbreak will soon be contained. Already, though, it's wiped out entire families, and no one knows when or where it will reappear.
Towards the end of the summer in 2014, major news stations started making reports and educational documentaries of the major Ebola outbreaks happening in West Africa.
This deadly virus continues to spiral out of control in neighboring Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Liberia.
When it comes to Ebola, the first thing you need to know is that dying from the virus is like something out of a horror movie. It's extremely painful and terrifying.
These constant updates and documentaries on the disease were made to inform those outside of Africa of the severity of the disease and of the mass amounts of people it was killing on the other side of the world. The news reports and documentaries were being carefully watched all over the country.
West Africa is currently in the midst of by far the worst case of the disease since it was first discovered in Africa back in 1976. This year's outbreak has been traced to a 2-year-old boy who died on December 6th, 2013, in a village in Guinea.
Starting right now on
News reports became even more widely viewed when news stations began reporting about cases that were brought back to and caught in the United States.
The race to save 2 Americans stricken with a killer virus. This morning, breaking details on the emergency mission to bring the first patient home.
Moving developments tonight. The second American infected with Ebola here at home.
Eventually, just about every major news station and newspaper was talking and writing about the deadly disease with concerned and worrisome tones, which ultimately led Americans to go haywire. Ebola was the trending topic everyone was talking about on social media. On top of all of the tweets from your everyday American, celebrities were also tweeting about the disease. Well-known celebrity and American recording artist Chris Brown tweeted that he thought that the Ebola disease was a form of population control, while Donald Trump tweeted about how Ebola patients needed to be kept out of the U.S. and that our leaders were incompetent. This ultimately shows that the immense amount of dramatized Ebola news reports had caused Brown, Trump, and probably many other Americans to reveal their personal concerns and fears about the disease on social media sites. There was a period of time when someone would cough or sneeze and another would respond with, "Do you have Ebola?" or "Don't give me Ebola." Scenarios like these reveal how much of an impact the reporting of this epidemic had on Americans' concerns of there being an outbreak in the United States. The obsession didn't stop there. Everything Ebola-wise got so out of control. People started talking about another disease some like to call Fearbola. As explained by Mel Robbins, a CNN commentator and legal analyst, Fearbola is a hypercontagious disease that affects the brain. making sufferers fear a widespread Ebola outbreak in the U.S. Ebola is an airborne disease that spreads through conversation, entering your brain through your ears. Ebola is so contagious that some victims have contracted it by simply seeing images and videos about Ebola.
We're facing an awful threat, as scary as it can get, a dread disease that spreads with ease and makes you freeze in terror and agony.
Robin's tone throughout this part and the rest of her article is clearly very sarcastic and playful. Her tone makes her audience realize that everyone who is freaking out about actually having Ebola, getting Ebola, or there being an Ebola outbreak in the United States is being ridiculous.
Rumors that are outrageous, it gets in your ears and hypes up your fears of something you're not gonna catch. The lunatic rants that rain down will totally shut your brain down unless you refuse to turn on Fox News, who love fanning fear and hysterics. Instead of this mindless dread, go get a flu shot instead.
Robin states facts from the CDC that say the flu had reached epidemic levels in last year's season. She ends her witty article by saying, it's time to eradicate Ebola and focus on how you can help those who are suffering from Ebola outbreaks overseas. And while you're at it, you should probably get a flu shot. Ending her article like this makes her readers come to the realization that Americans are some of the last people who should be worried about catching the disease, and that there are people out there that actually have a reason to be worried about dying from Ebola.
Would be the worst plan and make the real crisis get worse. But we'll survive if we all stop listening to Rand Paul. Please relax and look at the facts, or we'll all be attacked by Ebola.
Obviously, everyone is
Ebola
talking about
became
Ebola,
a buzzing topic.
and
Some took it
yesterday, federal
seriously,
health
some not so
officials
much.
they will
On the
require
well-known
temperature
late-night
checks at
show,
5
Late Night
major
with Seth
American airports
Meyers
for
did a
people
segment
arriving
on
from countries
Ebola.
most affected by the Ebola virus. Joining us now with an update to the crisis from the Center for Disease Control, Dr. Henry Boghossian.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me, Seth.
Well, thank you, doctor. So tell us, how worried should people be about Ebola?
Well, Seth, Ebola is very serious, but it can only be contracted if you have direct contact with the bodily fluids of an infected person. And if you live in the U.S., you really shouldn't be that worried.
Well, that is very comforting to hear, doctor.
Yes. However, there is a different illness unique to the United States that everyone should be very concerned about.
And what's that?
Fearbola.
Fearbola.
Yes, that is the irrational fear of catching
Throughout this clip,
Ebola.
the doctor from the CDC
Ebola,
shares with Myers ways that one could catch Ebola.
Okay, how do you contract it?
Well, just simply by watching cable news. Just 5 minutes of exposure to CNN or Fox News, and you might have Fearbola.
Okay, so, but if you don't watch cable news, you're safe.
Not necessarily. You see, Fearbola is what we would call a hearborne
The sarcasm
virus.
throughout this segment shows that the reason Ebola even exists is ultimately because of the dramatic way that major news stations like CNN and Fox News portrayed this event. This furthers the point that once an idea is planted into media, it can spur into pure satire.
Now you may have Fearbola.
So what are symptoms of Fearbola? How do you know if you have it?
That's a good question. Well, if you dive under your desk every time you hear a sneeze, you might have Fearbola. Okay. If you're so afraid of Liberians you refuse to return your overdue books.
A lot about Americans and their fears is revealed when the doctor says,
If you think Africans should stay in Africa, you might be a redneck. And you might have Fearbola.
This comment correlates with the Ebola parody song and Mel Robbins' article. Robbins talks about how not only individuals have contracted Ebola, but institutions have too.
They might lie awake at night terrified they're going to die from granola or Coca-Cola or the throat lozenge Ricola.
Wow.
Airports.
A small community college outside of Dallas has stopped accepting students from countries with confirmed cases of Ebola. Robbins puts this into perspective by saying, it would be like Harvard suddenly sending rejection letters to every high school applicant from Texas stating, unfortunately, Harvard is not accepting applications from students in states with confirmed cases of Ebola.
If they have a brown face, we'll keep them safe in Guantanamo Bay. I'm sorry everybody for the drama, but we're gonna get Ebola if we let black people in. Ebola's not a country in Africa, it's the whole continent. I have Ebola. You have Ebola. Obama has Ebola. Kanye has Ebola. Will Smith has Ebola. Tupac has Ebola. Steve Harvey has Ebola. Magic Johnson has Ebola. And Aid City and Biggie and Jay-Z and Nas have Ebola. Stephanie
Robbins then goes on to talk about how dangerous Ebola is, especially at an institutional level, because it leads to widespread discrimination. Although the majority of her article is very witty and sarcastic, this middle portion is much more serious, making her audience realize the effects Ebola is actually having on our nation. The redneck statement, the Ebola parody, along with Robin's statement about Ebola leading to widespread discrimination, shows exactly what the reporting of the Ebola virus has revealed about America and its citizens. The United States has always fit the stereotype of being an ethnic and racial melting pot, but the reaction that our nation had towards the reporting of the foreign disease, the disease itself, and those who were from countries that contain the disease, revealed that Americans are not as accepting or supporting of those who are different from us.
RuckersWorld.com. Rucker Ali.